Now I'm going to go back to sharing the screen so we can work our way through the presentation. So once again, welcome. The purpose of this session is to inform TCHC tenants about the role of tenant director, to inform tenants about how to apply using the city's application process, to demonstrate how to apply using the city's online portal. And keep in mind that at the end we will have a Q&A, so if you have questions, we'll get to them then. Using virtual technology for large meetings is kind of still new for all of us, so we wanted to just provide a brief code of conduct so that everyone gets the opportunity to speak. If you can be brief and limit yourself to one question or comment at a time, be a good listener and keep an open mind. Use the raise hand function of the WebEx program to ask a question, and we'll go over how you can share the questions at the beginning and end of this presentation. And also just be respectful. For individuals who require an accessibility related accommodation, we do find that using adaptive technologies is best used with the telephone. So if you do want to switch to the telephone, you can do that at any time during the meeting. We will be describing the content on the slides during the presentation, so you will still get to understand the content. The city has become aware of some accessibility limitations within WebEx, and we're working to resolve these. As I mentioned, this is a public event that is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the city's website. So we ask that you don't share any personal information, such as your last name, your address, or your phone number. If you want to discuss a private matter related to your tenancy, you can call the TCHC Client Care Center at 416-981-5500. So we will now get into the content of the presentation.
Jen, just before we get started,
Yep.
sorry to chime in, but I just wanted to note that we have our fifth panelist has joined us, Uba.
Oh,
And
excellent.
so, Uba, would you like to just briefly introduce yourself before we get into the meat of the session?
Yes, sorry I'm late. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm Uba Farah, and I'm a board member of Toronto Community Housing. So
Thanks, Uba.
welcome all of you. You're welcome.
It's great to have you. And thanks, Wyndham. I couldn't see this. I can only see 4 squares on my screen, so I didn't see that Uba had joined. So welcome.
Thank you.
So what is the TCH Board of Directors? And this is just a bit of an overview. TCHC is owned by the City of Toronto, and the city directs TCHC through a shareholder direction. The board governs TCHC in accordance with the direction set by the City of Toronto. And the board of directors oversees the management of TCHC and monitors the performance of the organization. The board is made up of a number of different groups of members. So there are 3 tenant directors. So these are public members who also have the added qualification of being tenants. There are 7 non-tenant public members, 2 city councilors, and 1 mayor's designate. So we're doing this recruitment because in 2021, council directed city staff to add a new position of a tenant director on the board. This is our 3rd time doing recruitment for tenant directors in this way. And, you know, oftentimes there's questions about what is different between a tenant rep in the TCHC tenant engagement system and the role of a tenant director. And the tenant director is really an overseer. There's an accountability there that is overseeing the management of TCHC as a director on the board. And the requirements for being a tenant director, you have to have qualifications to be a board member, and as well you must be a current tenant of TCHC. And Robin's going to talk more about the qualifications, and I think Uba's going to talk more about the role and what it's been like to be a tenant director on the TCH board. A tenant rep in the TCH engagement system provides TCHC feedback on tenant perspective on specific issues and provides local leadership in their community. So I'm going to pass it off to Robin now to talk about some of the qualifications.
Great. Thank you very much, Jen. So on the screen now, you'll see there's a list of qualifications, and I will read through each of them. But I did want to say that these are the qualifications that the board as a whole collectively represents. So as an individual, we don't expect that you would check off all of the different qualifications, but each member on the board is bringing different skills and qualifications, and then collectively the board as a whole should reflect all of these. So some of the qualifications include lived experience as tenants, social services for tenants, social housing delivery, housing advocacy, community development, property management and land development, business management, corporate governance, organizational development, labor relations, and business and contract law. And if we could just go to the next slide, please. And I will, I'll share as well about the application further on and just talk about how you want to highlight some of those qualifications. But so for the time commitment for the board of directors, the TCHC board meets approximately 8 times a year, and the meetings are usually held during business hours. So they're held Monday to Friday, typically between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. And board members are also asked to participate in one of the board's 3 committees. So that could be the Tenant Services Committee, the Governance, Communication, and Human Resources Committee, or the Building, Investment, Finance, and Audit Committee. So you'll attend board meetings, and then you'll also, in addition to that, attend committee meetings for one of the 3 committees. And board and committee material is typically sent out 7 to 10 days in advance. So this allows you time to review all the materials and be prepared in advance of the meeting. And so tenant director eligibility. So in order to be eligible to serve as a tenant director on the board, as Jen mentioned, you must be a current tenant of Toronto Community Housing. And then the eligibility for the TCHC board as a whole, which also applies to the tenant director role, is that you must be a resident of the City of Toronto. You must be at least 18 years old. You cannot be the spouse, partner, child, or parent of a member of Toronto City Council. And you cannot be a city employee or an employee of a city agency or corporation. So this does include TCHC. So if you are an employee of TCHC, then you're not eligible to be on the board of directors. And board members do receive remuneration for their participation on the board. So all public members receive an annual stipend of $2,500. And then you also receive $500 per meeting, up to a maximum of $10,000 per year. And any board expenses or expenses that are incurred will be reimbursed. And it's important to note as well that this compensation must be included in income reporting for RGI tenants. So this could impact the amount you pay in rent. And I will hand it over to Upa now. She's going to share a little bit about her experience as a tenant director on the board.
Thank you, Robin. And again, thank you and congratulations to everyone who's applying. And so tenant directors appointed by to the board is 2 years term, and if someone after the 2 years wanted to continue to stay, then they reapply and go through the same, request. They would request, say, I'm interested to stay another term, and then they go through the same process that as a new person will do. And the scope of the work and the workload, there's a lot of work. And I don't mean to scare anybody. It is a lot of reading. I remember when I first started, a previous board members say there's a lot of work, and I was like, it's it's not going to be that big of a deal. I remember going to university all over again. Big binders, and it's so important, extremely important to read all the material, because that's how you staying, on top of things. That's how you get involved and engage and make decisions, right? It's through your experience, but a lot of it is to know what the material is, and so there's no way around it. And good stuff, a lot of information, a lot of learning curves, but it's a lot of work. And the other thing is, as Robin mentioned, it's not only the board, being a board member, that you only joining the board and meeting 8 times a year. You also being part of 2 different in subcommittee. Like for instance, right now I am a board, but I'm also part of the tenant service committee, as well as the HR and governance committee, and I'm also a vice chair of the tenant. So there's a lot of work. So you meeting like all the time, and sometimes special board meeting comes up on top of the the 8 times that people, the mandatory ones. And again, how board meetings work, it's just, again, it's just they tell us a week or 2 weeks before. They prepare all this paperwork that I'm talking about. They send, we read, we follow the the agenda. Sometimes, even though some people would call some agenda items and say we're gonna defer this to another meeting, or we're not gonna talk about this as much, but we'll talk about that as much. So it's all about negotiation. Attendance is, again, extremely important, because it's the voting. You have to have, if you don't have a quorum, let's say if somebody comes 8 o'clock and by 10:30, if they have to leave, let's say 3 people, that can interrupt the entire meeting, because then you don't have a quorum all of a sudden, right? You have to have a quorum as always. And again, that's how you voice your and vote. It's by being, it's a commitment. In a nutshell, it's really a commitment. And confidentiality, that also is super extremely important, because people respect you enough, and it's an honor. As much as it is a privilege to be a board member, it's a lot of responsibility on our shoulders, and making sure people's lives and stories and information are protected, right? Whether it is staff members, whether it is tenants, whether it is your colleagues. So whatever it stays in that room has to stay in that room, unless it become a public. And unfortunately, and this is not to scare you, it's just an experience that I experienced as a tenant board member. One time, a former board member came to me and said, "Oh, Uba, I am so proud of you and Amanda. Ever since you came, there's no leak happened." To her, that was a compliment, but to me, I was a bit taken back that and offended, to be honest with you, because I'm thinking, first of all, nobody should lead anything. It's, as I said, it's an honor to be part of this group, but also we shouldn't assume that if story leaks, it's the tenant board that did that, right? Because and I'm sure what she said came from a good place, and I'm sure she didn't mean it that way, but that's how it came. So for a tenant board, it's that much more important to make sure that whatever happens in that room stays in that room, in terms of confidentiality. Again, time commitment and tools required. Time commitment. It's a 2-year, 4-year, whatever term will be. It's a time commitment. It's like a job. I mean, it's a great that people are getting paid every meeting. There are boards that people don't get paid, right? So this is an incentive, but more importantly, it's in order to leave a legacy and to do the job that once hope to accomplish. It's a time commitment. It's like a real job commitment, and tools required. Trainings, learning from others before you, educating yourself, maybe taking some board training and course or what have you. being flexible and interpersonal skills always helps as well. And that's where I'm gonna stop. Yeah. And also know that even though it's a lot of rewarding and very good work, sometimes it gets tough, because imagine it's 13 people who have 13 different ideologies. Sometimes you can make friends like that, but you can also lose friends like that if you have two different, you know, values or agenda or ideas. So always to be patient, to enjoy the moment, and just stay focused, because nobody is there as a flower. We are all there to make a difference. So as long as you have that in the back of your mind, you guys gonna make it well. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Uba. We appreciate you sharing all that information, and Uba's gonna stay on the line. So after we're finished going through the slides, we'll also have a chance to answer some questions as well. So if you have any questions for Uba, then she'll be available to provide some additional information. So next, we're going to talk about the city's public appointments process. So the first step in the process is to submit an application, and I'm going to do a little bit of a demo of how you can do that online. We'll walk through the application, and then once the application deadline is in February. Once that closes, all the applications are reviewed, and a panel will select candidates for interview. And then the candidates will be interviewed, and the panel will make recommendations to the corporation's nominating panel. And this is a panel of 3 members of City Council. And then the corporation's nominating panel sends those recommendations to City Council for final approval. That's the point where the names and the biographies of the candidate that's being recommended will become publicly available, and it will go on the council agenda, and then council ultimately makes the final decision. So a couple tips for applying. So at the beginning, I spoke a little bit about the qualifications, and those are also listed on our website, so you can take a look at them as well. And Uba has shared with us about the time commitment. So the first thing you want to do is take a look at the qualifications and think about the time commitment and decide if this is the right opportunity for you. You want to make sure that you know, it matches up with your interests. Uba's shared that it is a big time commitment and something that you know, you'll be spending a lot of hours reviewing materials and attending meetings. So you want to make sure that it's something that you're passionate about and something that you'll enjoy. So if you decide to apply, you can complete an application online, and when you're filling out the application form, you want to make sure that you're demonstrating, when you're answering the questions, demonstrate how your skills and experience meet the qualifications that are listed. So you can choose a couple that you want to highlight and show us through the various experiences that you have in training and you know, volunteer experience and employment, how your skills match up with the qualifications. We don't accept resumes and cover letters, so whatever you include in your application form is all that's going to be considered. So make sure that you're providing as much relevant information as possible for the panel, so that when they're reviewing, you know, the applications, they have all the appropriate information about your background to consider in making their decision. And then if you're selected for an interview, you'll want to prepare for the interview just as you would any job interview. So think through what questions the panel might ask and practice your responses. And again, you're going to just want to be sure that in the interview process, you're also highlighting your skills and qualifications and all the things that you included in your application. So a little bit about the timeline. So the application process is open now, and it will be open until February 15th. That's the last day to apply. We'll be conducting interviews in March, and the recommendations will go forward to City Council in April. So whoever's appointed by Council will join the board at the beginning of April. And so now we're going to do a quick little demo of the application, of the online application. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. If I move that over there, can everyone still see it? Yep. Okay, perfect. So if you go to toronto.ca/TCHC tenants, it will take you to this page here, and this is the profile page for the Toronto Community Housing Board. So you can see there's a little bit of a description, and it talks about the board responsibilities, the term of office, the composition, and then here is where the qualifications are listed. So this is where you can take a look and decide which qualifications you want to highlight in your application. It also shares the information about the meetings and the remuneration that's provided. In this membership chart, you can see who is currently appointed to the board. So you'll see we have one vacancy waiting to be filled. And then at the bottom of the page, under this first section where it says apply now, it says to submit your application below to be considered for a tenant director on the TCHC board. So you'll want to click on the apply online button. And that will take you to the application form. And so we'll just go through this quickly. So it asks for contact information, and then it will ask about your eligibility. So some of that criteria that I spoke about before, and it also asks you to confirm that you're a current tenant of Toronto Community Housing. And then we ask about if you're appointed to any other city boards. So you're only able to serve on one city board at a time, which is why we ask about that there. And we also give you a chance if there's any potential conflicts of interest that you want to declare. And if you do have any, it doesn't make you ineligible for appointment. It's just you'll just have to declare any potential conflicts. And then part 5. So this is the important part of the application. This is where you're going to provide all the relevant information that you want to share with the selection panel. So the first question asks you about your interest in the position. So you'll want to tell us why you're interested in joining the TCHC board and what skills and what things you hope to contribute to the board. And then the second question is about education and training. So you can talk about any education background, any trainings you completed, any professional credentials you have, include all that there. Question 3 is about your employment experience. And this is where you could probably pull some information from your resume. So you want to provide the different roles that you've held, the length of time that you worked at the particular place, and highlight some of the things that you were responsible for with each of those roles. Question 4 is about board and community involvement. So this is where you can highlight any other boards that you've been on or committees you've participated in, or community and volunteer experiences can all be included there. And question 5 about additional information is optional. So if there's anything else you think you would like the panel to know, you can include it there. And we also ask you for a biography and just some information about how you heard about the opportunity. And then at the end of the application is a confidential voluntary diversity survey. This is also optional, so it's up to you if you'd like to complete it. It just helps the panel to ensure that they're selecting a diverse pool of candidates when they're bringing candidates in for interviews. And then at the bottom, you'll just click on this little box here, I am not a robot, and click submit your application. And we do have the option, we can, if online isn't preferred for you, then we can also mail out a copy of this application form as well. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thanks, Robin.
Pass it back over to Jen.
And I will pass it to Wyndham to go over how to use WebEx for the Q&A session that is about to begin.
Okay, thanks everyone. And thank you, Jen. So I'm just going to briefly give some instructions about how you can submit your questions. And then we'll go into the question and answer portion. So you can ask a question to any of the panelists if you want to ask a question about how the application process works, or if you want to ask Uba a question about being a tenant director on the board. You can ask any of us a question. So if you have joined through your computer or through your smartphone online, then what you're going to do is you're just going to click at the bottom, I think it's the bottom right of your screen. There should be a little button that has 3 dots on it. So you'll click that button and you'll select Q&A. That'll allow you to type a question into the box in the lower right hand of your screen. So you'll just type your question into that chat box and then you'll click send. Only the panelists will be able to see your questions, but I'll be able to see all of them. And as soon as you send it in, I will direct one of the questions to our panelists, and then they'll be answered. So that's how you, if you joined online, that's how you submit a question, is using this little Q&A box in the bottom right. If you've called in over the phone, I see that we have 1 or 2 people who have joined us by phone. The way that you can ask a question for the Q&A is to type in or punch in *3 on your phone, and that will allow you to raise your hand. Your name will be placed into a queue based on the order of who raised their hand first. That'll come up on our screen, and we will be able to, Antoinette and I will be able to select and individually unmute participants with their hands raised by announcing the digits of their phone number. I actually don't even know if we need to do that because I think we can see your first names even if you joined by phone. So when you are selected and unmuted, you will hear 2 beeps, and this means you can ask your question. So if you joined by the phone and you have a question, all you need to do is punch in that *3 on your phone, and then we'll be able to get to your question that way. So I'd like to go ahead and open it up. So for any of our guests, please let us know your questions.
Maybe while we wait for questions from attendees, I can ask some of the questions that we've heard before. So if people are shy to say a question, but they're thinking it, people often ask about technology that you need, Uba. Do you need a computer? I'm assuming the meetings are virtual right now. So can you talk a little bit about that, and if you had that or you needed to get some support from TCHC? Oh, you're muted, Uba.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I have a computer, so I think everyone needs a computer because sometimes even to print out that many papers is not even, you know, realistic. And now all the meetings is taking place virtually, so yeah, one will need a computer, sure, and to have some knowledge, some skills about a computer and how to use it. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's just good to know. People have asked before about whether or not they can, use their phones or if they need laptops. So that's good to know.
There are times when, sorry, people, when they, let's say there are times either you're driving and you're going to, especially when we were doing in-person meetings, then you call from your phone and participate the meeting or listen or what have you, and then when you get there, then it's in person. Sometimes people can use the phone. I mean, it's not like you can never use your phone, but I think one will hear more or participate or be, having that face to face, even though if it's through the computer. I think computer is better.
Thanks.
We just had a question come in from the chat that I wanted to direct, I think, to Robin, might be the best person to ask. The question is, I am not sure if I have heard about reference requirements. Do I need any references for my application? And if so, from whom?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We don't typically, as a part of the process, we don't check references. So you won't be asked to provide any references. It'll just be reviewing the application and then the interview, and then we'll make our decision based on that.
Great. I have one other question here. So the question is, was this application information sent to all tenants of Toronto Community Housing? Robin, do you want to answer that one as well?
Sure, yes. So the application form is open to all tenants of TCHC to apply, but we promoted it specifically in buildings that are situated in Scarborough. And the reason for that is that we received direction from the corporation's nominating panel to focus our outreach efforts on tenants from Scarborough. Just because there's no current representation on the board of the current members from Scarborough. So we are focusing on reaching out to tenants in Scarborough, but the application is open to all tenants across the city.
So that means, just to clarify, based on what Robin says, Robin just said that you do not have to live in a building in Scarborough to be eligible. If you live in a TCHC building anywhere else in the city, you are still absolutely eligible to apply. I've got one more question coming in. Oh, so I have another question on the chat, but first I'll go to Antoinette, who has a question from the phone.
Sure. So I do have a question, and the caller's telephone number starts with 1647527. So I'm going to unmute that caller right now, and then they'll be able to answer their question. So caller, you're unmuted. You can go ahead and ask your question. Okay, so that's to the caller whose phone number starts with 1647527. And you can also, if it's not unmuted, you can also unmute your phone by pressing on the microphone. Okay, so I'm not sure what's happening there. I'm just going to put them back on mute for a second, and you may go ahead with the calling them, and then we'll try again after.
Okay, no problem. So I'm just going to go to the next question that's coming through the chat. So the next question is, how long will the interview be? And that's Robin, maybe you can speak to that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So the interview will last approximately 20 to 30 minutes. We ask all the same, typically we ask 4 to 5 questions, and we ask the same questions to all the candidates that are selected for interviews.
Great. And Robin, I'm guessing that because of COVID-19 and the pandemic right now, that means that the interview would be virtual rather than in person. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. So we'll be using WebEx to do the interviews virtually as well. Similar platform to this one that we're using right now.
Great. I have one more question. So we have the comment written in that somebody says, I live in Scarborough and no one, myself included, in our building has any information on this. I can speak to that briefly, and then if any of the other panelists want to jump in. So we did ask Toronto Community Housing to distribute flyers and posters in all their buildings in Scarborough. about this opportunity. They indicated that they had, but if you want to follow up with me after, my phone and my email will be available, and we can discuss if that information wasn't posted in your building. At the same time, Toronto Community Housing also, I believe, included this information in their the most recent tenant newsletter mail out. But again, if you want to call or email me after, if your building hasn't received any information, I will definitely follow up, and we can make sure that that changes, because we really want to make sure that people see this opportunity, and that you and all your neighbors have all the information you need about how to apply and everything. Is there anything that any of the other panelists wanted to add?
Thanks, Wyndham.
Okay. So right now I'm through all the questions in the chat, but maybe we'll just give it a couple more minutes to see if people want to ask a few additional questions. I had a question for Uba, just about the time commitment. So if you had to put kind of an hour guess on how many hours a week you spend on an average week with your Toronto Community Housing Board of Director responsibilities, how many hours would you say on average per week you might spend on that?
Okay, we're gonna put my math to the test now. and and so let's say if we meet 8 meetings for the board and another at least 8 between the what do you call the committees. So the meetings itself, let's say you have any one of the committees, they start 8:30 and finish around 11. So that's sometimes 8 to 11. So that's 3 hours, right? And to prepare that, at least you're gonna need 3, 4, 5 hours of that just to read for that, cover the material. The board meetings, it is from 8 to 1, so 5 hours. And the reading of that could take, it depends, I'm a slow reader, so it takes at least a day because it's all the in committee meetings and the board meeting material combined. That's what the board meeting is, right? It's much larger content compared to the committee. So I don't know how that will be in weeks, because we maybe 3, 4 hours a week. It could be more. And if sometimes the special and board meeting comes in like last minute, then it could be more.
Great, thank you, Uba. I do have a new question that's come in on the chat. So the question is, do you think there is a disadvantage if someone applying is younger and has less experience than someone who may be older and well-versed in the field? And maybe I'll have Robin speak to that, and then maybe also Uba, if you have any thoughts about that question too, you can chime in.
Absolutely. Thanks for that question, Wyndham. I think, having a diversity of perspectives on the board is absolutely an asset. So having the voice of a younger person at the table would be great. It all, you have different perspectives and experiences that you're bringing, and maybe you don't have experiences as a board member, but that's okay, because you can talk about some of the employment and volunteer experience you do have, and really share in your application sort of what motivates you to want to join the board and contribute. And so no, I don't think that it would be a disadvantage. I think it would be great to have that perspective at the table. And Uba, please feel free to add to that as well.
Yeah, just to echo what Robin said, it's an advantage and it's a privilege. And I agree with Robin. We need that diversity every sense of the word, and especially at age, because now I'm a board member, another gentleman who I don't know about my age or older is a board member. So if, let's say, hypothetically speaking, a youth person comes, they bring in that perspective, like a young person's perspective. And in terms of the experience, I think, guys, you have the most important and you have the best experience because you have lived the experience, right? Yeah. I mean, when people get to the board, it could be a little bit intimidated because you will have lawyers and CEOs and VPs and what have you, and people who are managing billions of dollars. That can throw someone off. But at the end of the day, nothing beats and nothing's more have more weight and experience than lived experience, right? We are tenant. We live through this experience day in, day out. So you are all good.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Uba and Robin. Antoinette, was there one more question maybe we wanted to try to get to?
Sure. So I'm just going to try this. Oh, it's disappeared actually. So maybe the person has changed their mind, but I guess we can share that information afterwards on how to reach us. But the hand has disappeared. So.
Okay, great. So just while we wait for just to see if anyone has any additional questions, Robin, would you be able to just speak briefly about who would be on the interview panel if people move to the interview stage?
Yes, absolutely. So on the interview panel, it will be city staff. So it will be myself and Antoinette from the Public Appointments Office, and then it will also be Wyndham from the Tenants First Office. And we're also going to have a previous tenant director on the panel as well, who can bring the perspective of tenants and also someone that's served on the board, because Wyndham, Antoinette, and myself don't have experience as board members on the TCHC board, so we'll have a tenant involved on the panel as well. And so it will be the four of us. It won't be intimidating though, and if you are selected for an interview, then you've already seen our faces, so hopefully that will ease the process a little bit as well.
Great. Well, if there aren't any more questions, what we're going to do, I think, is just go to the final slide here that we put up on the screen, and we're going to leave it up for a little while. Oh, I see somebody has asked for a recording of this presentation. Absolutely, you can get one. So on this screen, you'll see there's an email right here at the top called tenantsfirst@toronto.ca. That email goes to me. So if you just take down this email address, tenantsfirst@toronto.ca, and you send me a message saying that you would like a recording, or send me a message if you have any questions about any of the information that we talked about, you can send me an email anytime straight to this address and I'll respond right away. You can also give me a call if you would prefer, if you're joining by phone, and you can reach me at 416-397-7570, and that'll go directly to my line. So again, if there's any questions, if you would like a recording, if you need to see the link to go to the online application, or also, as Robin mentioned, if you need a paper copy of an application to be mailed to you, please just send me an email here or give me a call. If you have more questions beyond that, you can also reach out to the Public Appointments Office. That's the office that Robin and Antoinette work for, that handles the processing of the applications, manages how the applications are submitted. So you can send an email to appoint@toronto.ca or give a call to 397-0088. So we'll leave this screen up for a few minutes to give you a chance to jot down these numbers and these email addresses. But please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any further questions. We'd be very happy to answer them. And maybe I'll just hand briefly back to Jen in case she wants to say any words of closing.
Thanks, Wyndham. And thanks once again, everyone, for joining us. Just on the video link, we will convert it and upload to the city's YouTube channel and then post a link on our website. And then we can also, if you email Wyndham, we can email you out the link. The files are generally too large to actually transfer, but it will be publicly available. Just as an FYI, and thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks to panelists for coming out in the evening and to all the participants. I'm going to stop recording now and we'll end the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have
a great night.
wonderful night.
Thanks.
Thank you for the kind words. And yeah, have a great evening. We appreciate it. And please send us your applications.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks. Bye.